From the capital of Raider Nation, Las Vegas, Nevada, it's Silver and Black Today, your daily dose of all things Las Vegas Raiders football. News, views, guests, and your phone calls are all part of the game plan. There's only one nation, and it listens here. Now your host, Scott Gulbranson.
Welcome back, Raider Nation. It is a Wednesday. This is Silver and Black Today. I am Scott Gulbranson, and as always, our hosting is with me on Wednesday is Mr. Hondo Carpenter. Hondo, how you doing today?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Good. There's a lot going on, including in the world of Raider Nation. We're going to get to that right at the top of the show. But as always, the show is powered by our good friends Sam and Ash, the injury attorneys. 702-820-1234 is the number. And then, of course, for the last couple days, the conversation has been around Derek Carr again. Imagine that. There's never an offseason that goes by where we don't talk about Derek Carr. And again, though, I have to challenge Raider Nation out there. Read before you think and comment publicly. But joining us now is the man who wrote a story about the Raiders that was entitled, Will Raiders Trade Derek Carr to Acquire Deshaun Watson? And that, of course, is my teammate here, my good friend, host In the Huddle here next at 4 o'clock on Raider Nation Radio. And that is the beat writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal covering the Raiders. That is Vinny Bonsignore. Vinny, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you doing? How's it going, Hondo?
Hey, buddy, doing good. Thank you.
Well, Vinny, I know you've been a busy guy because I'm seeing you do radio spots all over the country as it relates to your story from yesterday in the RJ, where you basically just laid out, hey, listen, Derek Carr had a great year. He was a top 10 quarterback last year in a top 10 offense. And in this league where quarterbacks rule the roost and where quarterbacks are vital to NFL teams competing for a championship, the Raiders have interest in Derek Carr. I mean, I should say other teams have interest in Derek Carr. It doesn't mean they're going to trade him, but explain to people who wouldn't take the time to read your excellent piece up on the RJ what exactly it said and what it didn't say.
Well, a couple things. Down at the Senior Bowl last week in Mobile, Alabama, the quarterback carousal is spinning, as we speak in the NFL. And there's a combination of reasons why. Number one, you've got somebody like Deshaun Watson who has come out and said that he wants to get traded. You've got an uncertain situation in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz. You already saw, over the weekend, the Rams moving Jared Goff to Detroit for Matthew Stafford, who Matthew Stafford had asked to be traded, and he was definitely a popular quarterback among teams that need quarterbacks. And that's the other element of it. You have teams like the Colts. You have teams potentially like the New Orleans Saints, the New England Patriots, the Washington Football Club, the Chicago Bears, who have needs at quarterback and are otherwise good teams that are, if you look at the rest of their roster, are playoff teams that need quarterbacks, either in the form of an upgrade or just strictly, we need a quarterback. Phillip Rivers is retired. Drew Brees is expected to retire. Tom Brady is no longer in New England. So you have that combination. You have a market, you have a landing spots and needs. And so as a result of that, and especially now with Matthew Stafford coming off the market, teams are looking, for viable options. And Derek Carr, based on his age, based on the season that he's put together, not just this year, but the one last year as well, based on his contract, is somebody that teams are interested in. And that's the main part of the story. And that was what I was hearing in Mobile, that teams are going to put together proposals potentially to take it to the Raiders to see if, hey, is this, would you be willing to trade Derek Carr for X, Y, and Z? Now, the other part of that coin is, okay, if you're the Raiders, why would you move on from Derek Carr? He's a top 10 quarterback this year by all statistical measures. The offense that he played in and oversaw was the 10th best scoring team in the NFL. Your offense is set. You're really looking to get better now on defense. Why would the Raiders, make that move? Well, in canvassing general managers, decision makers across the NFL, you could use the Derek Carr piece if you're, and it all is dependent on what's going on with Houston and Deshaun Watson, because you can't just move Derek Carr without having a viable replacement. Much like the Rams, they weren't just going to trade Jared Goff. They saw an opportunity to go get better than what they had in Matthew Stafford, and probably overpaid a little bit to go get Matthew Stafford. But they really, trust me when I say, they really wanted Matthew Stafford and feel like, hey, if we got to beat other people out of the water or blow some other teams out of the water in doing so, we're going to do it because we feel like he's a 9 with our 10 coach, and that can get us closer to the Super Bowl. So from the Raiders' perspective, it's the same exact thing. You're not going to just move Derek Carr, even if there are some compelling offers, which I expect there to be compelling offers. You're still not going to just trade him. You have to have a viable replacement, and that's where Derek or Deshaun Watson comes into play in terms of if you can get it to 2 first-round picks, which multiple decision makers and general managers have told me there could be a path to that. If there's multiple teams that are interested, and that's expected to be the case, and a little bit of a bidding war comes into play, you can get it to 2 first-round picks for Derek Carr. That's not an unreasonable price at that point. Look what Matthew Stafford, who Derek Carr played better than last year, got to move to the Rams. And so where the viable replacement comes into play, there's not many quarterbacks right now as currently constructed that are better than Derek Carr in the NFL, and certainly not many that are available. Watson might be available. And so if you're the Raiders, the only way you move a Derek Carr is if you have assurances that you could take the 2 first-round picks that you get from Washington, Chicago, or Indianapolis, or whoever it might be, pair them with your 2 first-round picks that you have in 2021 and 2022, and now you're able to go make a Godfather offer to the Houston Texans. And in reality, if it did play out that way, which I'm not saying it will, a lot has to happen, obviously. The Raiders would be looking at trading Derek Carr and their 2 first-round picks, one in 2021 and one in 2022, for Deshaun Watson. That's really what the trade would be, because the 2 picks that they would be getting for Derek Carr aren't really theirs. It would never be theirs. It would just be diverted right to Houston. So the story is that there's a lot of interest in Derek Carr, but for the Raiders to move Derek Carr, they'd have to have a backup option that's better than Derek Carr. But there's a way, and talking to decision makers and general managers, there's a way that the Raiders could take advantage of that attractiveness of Derek Carr to go get an even better version of Derek Carr, just a better player than Derek Carr and Deshaun Watson.
Vinny, this brings up a good point. By the way, it was a great article that you wrote. And the thing that we talked about on Monday's show, and Scott and I did, is that we'd heard that already teams were inquiring about Derek. There was interest there. And while everyone's making the story about the path to potentially being a Deshaun Watson in Las Vegas, people are missing the fact with the group that basically thinks that Derek Carr's trash. There's a lot of other NFL teams that see a lot of high value in him, is there not?
Yeah, and Sean McVay would always say, "The ones who know."
Right.
The fans think they know, but the fans don't necessarily always know. The ones who know. The NFL understands what Derek Carr is, what he represents, and how good he is. The statistics don't lie. I know that Raider fans, and rightfully so, are extremely frustrated, over what's happened during the years that Derek has been the quarterback. But if you're looking at it honestly and objectively, and other teams and other decision makers and other scouts and other talent evaluators, their job is to cut through it all to find out who is this player, and what kind of a grade do we give him? The player, not the team around him, the success, the wins and losses, all of that. You're looking strictly at the player, and when honest evaluators look at Derek Carr, they see a very capable quarterback in a system like New Orleans or Washington or the Colts. That's a pretty good fit right there. Is he Deshaun Watson? Obviously, he's not Deshaun Watson. Nobody's saying that he is, but he's in that next realm underneath there, and statistics show that, and history has shown that you can win pretty big with a quarterback like that, with a bunch of otherwise good players around.
Yeah, and Vinny, again, Vinny Bonsignore is our guest here. We're talking about Derek Carr and his story about the Raiders getting calls about Derek Carr and his value as a trade piece. Should the Raiders, not that they're going to, but why not entertain offers, especially when, Vinny, you consider Derek Carr coming off that great year. You know, just like when you talk about selling high, not when it's low, that's when you do it. So you at least entertain offers. Now, unlike previous years where there was rumors about trades, rumors that Gruden didn't like Carr, which were all not really based in a lot of truth. This one is a little different. If you're Derek Carr today, how do you feel about this versus how you felt about it in years past?
Well, I mean, if you're Derek Carr, you don't like your name being out there in this way, and I totally understand his thoughts on that. If you're Derek Carr, you want to be in Las Vegas, you want to be with the Raiders, you want to sign an extension with the Raiders. Let's keep in mind he's got 2 years left on his deal, but none of that money is guaranteed. So he's in kind of a vulnerable spot, based on that. So, and he wants to be here, and he feels like after going through everything that he's gone through with the Raiders, he wants to be here when it gets turned around, and chances are he's going to be. That's what I think readers and fans need to understand. But at the same time, this is a business, and just like Jared Goff went through what he just went through and got traded from Los Angeles to Detroit, anything is possible. Now more than ever, given how I think more creative and more open-minded teams are to dealing first-round picks. The Buffalo Bills did it for Stephon Diggs. The Seattle Seahawks did 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick, I think, and maybe some other assets to go get Jamal Adams. The Indianapolis Colts did this very thing last year to go get DeForest Buckner. So, the teams are more willing to part ways with the end-all, be-all first-round picks that we've always romanticized them as, understanding that, hey, I could get more certainty by dealing it and getting a proven player. And there's one other thing I want to stress. If you look at the teams that would be interested in Derek Carr and the ones that are interested in Derek Carr, there's you can't just say a first-round pick and expect that to be completely the same in every situation. A first-round pick for the Indianapolis Colts this year has nothing on a first-round pick of the New York Jets or somebody that's in the top 10. There's in no way, shape, or form will Derek Carr or many other quarterbacks in this league get traded for 2 top 10 first-round picks, or a first-round pick that's in the top 10 right now, or one that's projected to be a top 10 pick, barring some major turnaround next year. These would be first-round picks that are at the tail end of the first round. But if you're then you ask, well, why would that be attractive, to a team like the Houston Texans? Well, if you're the Texans, you've given away a lot of picks over the years to go get some players in some ill-advised trades and moves that they have made. But if you're the Texans, and I'd have to look to see if they do have a first-round pick this year or next year, but let's just assume that they do. Now all of a sudden you're talking about having 2 first-round picks this year and 2 first-round picks next, or 3 actually. If you have your own, you would be getting 3 this year and then round picks next year. That's not a bad situation to be in, when compared to going into a season with a quarterback that is either extremely disgruntled and doesn't want to be there, or isn't even showing up if it gets to that point. I'm not saying that Deshaun Watson is going to hold out or anything like that. I don't know that to be the case. But he has expressed some level of misgivings about being in Houston, and that's never a good situation to be in. So 3 first-round picks, if I'd have to look again to see where the Texans are on the first-round picks, but 3 first-round picks this year and next year is a pretty good starting point for them to begin their rebuild.
Yeah, and Vinny, I mean, before I let you go, too, the one thing I would say, too, is if you're a Raiders fan, if you're especially a Derek Carr fan, and you're upset over this talk, you have to also understand the position that the Raiders are in, where you always have to entertain offers, that no one is really untouchable ever. Again, like the percentage chances that this all happens are at this time not great. I think you pegged it at like, if Houston was willing to play ball, I think you pegged it at like 80%, but we don't have that yet. And so if I'm the Raiders too, and I'm looking at first round draft picks, my own and wherever I could acquire a couple others, especially this year, with what happened with COVID, you just don't know what's going to happen with the draft. The first round of the draft, especially the second half of the first round, is not even close to a guarantee. And so if you're the Raiders, you have to entertain offers and you have to have conversations, but it doesn't mean anything's going to happen. I know, Vinny, you're going to talk a lot more about this coming up at 4 o'clock. What else do you have coming up on In the Huddle?
Yeah, and we also have Jonathan Abram coming on in the huddle, so we'll get a chance to talk to Jonathan about the season that he's coming off. If he's been able to talk to the new defensive coordinator Bradley, and really specifically his secondary coach Ron Milas, and where those conversations have taken him. Also wants to talk about some of the training that he's doing this offseason. So we're looking forward to talking to Jonathan, and of course we're going to talk about all this quarterback scuttlebutt. But if I were to, sum it up in one way, it truly is a compliment to Derek Carr. So, and I know that on some level he totally understands that and gets it. There's a market for him. There's no doubt there's a market for him, and the Raiders aren't going to just give him away if it ever came to that. It would have to be tied into something that makes them better at quarterback, which is hard to do when you're talking about a quarterback the caliber of Derek Carr.
Yeah, no doubt. Vinny Bonsignore in the huddle coming up at 4 o'clock. Vinny, thanks again for joining us.
All right, guys, have a great show. Take care, Hondo.
Thanks, Vinny.
All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to switch. We're going to talking about draft picks. And Rick Saratella from the NFL Draft Bible will be with us. We'll talk to him about the draft coming up, not only what players to watch out for, maybe some guys you could look for at the Raiders selections, but also how COVID and the weird college football season and opt-outs and all that, how that's going to impact the draft. You're with Hondo and Scott here on Silver and Black Today, only on Raider Nation Radio.